Everyone, welcome back to the Heel Deal Podcast. You're back with your hosts, Ben and Zach. Zach, how are you doing today?
Doing good, man. How are you?
Doing pretty well in light of Saturday night's events, but you best believe we're going to be getting into that this episode, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We got a lot to talk about, so we're excited to get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, we didn't do a rundown last episode because we were on like a weird schedule, but we'll give it to you guys this time. So let's go straight into it with men's soccer. They have tied against Davidson, won against Notre Dame, and lost against Duke in their last 3 games. So they're sitting at 4-2-2 overall. Pretty decent. Hopefully they can strengthen that record as the season goes on. Women's field hockey is kicking butt and taking names. They are 9-0 right now. Their last 4 games, win against Louisville, win against App State, win against Virginia, and then they dominated James Madison 9-0. I mean, they've won their last 2 games combined 14-0, so they're doing pretty well. Women's soccer, which is awesome. They actually had their first game on the field that they've named after Coach Dorrance. So It's Dorrance Field now. They christened it with a win today against Notre Dame, 3-0. So last 4 games, they lost against Arkansas, which was their only loss on the season. They're 10-1. Beat Louisville, beat NC State, and like I just said, beat Notre Dame. But why don't we get into the meat of the episode? We're going to recap that heartbreaking loss against Clemson, number 1 Clemson, of course, and then get into the Georgia Tech preview. So, Zach, tell me how you're feeling about that Clemson game.
Well, I mean, I'm proud of us in one aspect, but I'm also very upset in another aspect. There's obviously a lot of talk about the decision there at the end to go for 2. I know if any of you guys saw Ben and I tweeting last night directly after the game, you know our early thoughts on that. But for the players, though, on a positive note, they really came to play, and we could not be more proud of them for playing against the number 1 team in the country and holding them to 21 points and taking them down to the final minute of the game.
Yeah, exactly. So we can get more into that final call towards the end of this recap, but yeah, if you just take out everything except for that last play, these Tar Heels really showed up, and you really couldn't have, like, if you didn't know Clemson was the number 1 team in the country, they did not act like it. And our defense, despite injuries, really, really stood out. They had a hell of a game. Yeah,
especially fundamentally, Ben. I mean, some simple things in defense, right? Things like just containing the outside and, knowing your gap discipline, wrapping up the runner.
Mm-hmm.
Just little things like that you learn from the time that you are playing, pee-wee football. We really played well in those aspects, and because of that, we were able to do some other things. We were able to send some fancy blitzes down the stretch because we were doing so good fundamentally, and it gave Trevor Lawrence a lot of trouble. And it didn't allow Travis Etienne and their running game to really get comfortable either.
Yeah, exactly.
Those 2 things in conjunction obviously make it for an easier time for us and make it tougher for them to execute.
I mean, I was really worried about, whether or not Etienne was just going to run all over us, but they held him to 14 carries for 67 yards and 1 touchdown.
Right.
He's like a top 3 running back in this draft class, and to hold him to 67 yards like that is wild.
Yeah, he's really, really good, and he has been since he set foot on Clemson's campus. So that was really good. I just really couldn't be more proud of the defensive fundamentals yesterday. There were so many times where I was like, oh, my goodness, that is textbook.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have to do that when you're playing against this type of talent. And I'm so glad that we prepared at that level to be able to put this performance out there yesterday for the national TV audience.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it was so cool, like, just checking Twitter and stuff and seeing, like, all the big sports pages are paying attention to UNC football. Everyone was following that game, and everybody wanted the Tar Heels to win that and to finally upset Clemson, especially given how easy Clemson's schedule is. Even if, or I should say, I don't think they're as good as they were last year.
Okay.
And so, given their schedule, they really can waltz into the playoffs. But I think this is probably going to be like Bama's year or Georgia's year or whatever other team can come up and challenge them.
And I saw a couple tweets today about, like, there was one I saw that said that this year's Clemson team is last year's Notre Dame team. I don't think that's really fair.
I don't know about that one.
But I do agree with you, at least from what we've seen so far, that this may not be quite as good of a Clemson team as they had last year. And I mean, given how much talent they had on their defensive line last year, I don't really think that even they would argue with you to a certain extent, in that, at least on the defensive side of the ball. But yeah, nonetheless, I mean, they're number one. They were 4-0 coming in.
Yeah, I mean, they dropped to number 2 in the AP polls.
Well, that doesn't shock me at all. That doesn't shock me at all.
Oh, but still, they're 5-0, and still all they have to do is win out, and they're going to be in the college football playoffs. Yep. But man, we just came so close to playing spoiler there.
Yeah.
And it's just, it is so frustrating. But again, before we get too far into that, talk to me a little bit more about how Sam and how this offensive line, which is still missing Nick Polino, how they did.
Yeah, well, I mean, Sam did, I think, good given the circumstances. I mean, he was under pressure a lot throughout the game, and we kind of expected that. You mentioned Nick Polino, and then also, Charlie Heck was out there, but he's not 100%. He's playing with a broken hand. So, I mean, you're going up against a really good defensive line, although they're not that experienced. And so he's going to get some pressure, but I thought he handled it okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, I still think he needs to learn to get rid of the ball, even if it's just out of bounds, as opposed to taking so many sacks, because eventually that's going to add up, and we're still relatively early in the season now, but, we're getting into October now and stuff like that, so these hits are going to start adding up on him.
Well, exactly. I mean, there are some quarterbacks, and I'm pretty sure we've talked about this on like 1 or 2 different episodes, but there are young quarterbacks where the moment they feel pressure, they try and escape, and that can kill a play. Sam kind of has the opposite problem where he tries to stay in that pocket for a little too long, and some bad things can happen. You can get strip sacked there pretty easy. We got pretty lucky that didn't happen, but I would hate to see him go down just because he's not aware that the pocket's collapsing behind him.
Yeah, he's just a young player trying to make plays, I mean, we see that at every level of football, young guys and experienced guys. They don't want to be that guy who, is trigger happy and throws stupid passes or gets rid of it too quickly because they get happy feet or in the pocket or whatever. So he's trying to make plays, but I mean, seriously, he needs to be careful, and he needs to understand that he's going to get himself hurt if this is a habit that keeps, manifesting.
Exactly. I mean, if Sam goes down, you can kind of kiss our season goodbye. Or
right.
Any chance of us, being competitive in our division.
Especially because, Jace is now hurt, and I don't really know what his status is going to be going forward. I imagine he's going to be back at some point, but I don't know. So our only other quarterback is a walk-on freshman.
Yeah.
So, we don't want to have him be the one that has to take over, midway through the season. So, I definitely want to see him take care of himself more going forward.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. But, I mean, honestly, you compared Trevor Lawrence and Sam Howell in that game, and Lawrence did not look like anything special. We're making him uncomfortable. He actually missed a couple throws. He had one in, the third or fourth quarter where he had a guy completely open deep. And so we had pressure coming in the middle on a stunt, and just that hand in his face just made him overthrow that. But that was an easy touchdown. The guy had 2 or 3 steps on whichever one of our defensive backs were playing them.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the game plan and really happy with the game plan that Jay Bateman came up with. He understood, and you don't have to know too much about football to understand that if you're going to beat Clemson right now, you have to get pressure in his face. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you let him stand back there and just be comfortable, then you're not going to get very far, right? So, I mean, and we didn't do that, we had creative ways of getting that pressure, too, which is something that I don't think we've done until this game, at least not to the level that we
I know. This was the first time I was seeing a lot of these, exotic, blitzes and stunt plays.
The crosses and A-gaps by the linebackers and stuff like that. Yeah, that's some high-level stuff, and we executed it really well.
Yeah, exactly. So, on the defensive side of the ball, I just thought they were the reason we were still in that game. They were just getting the stops. And, I mean, they had a couple of mistakes, most notably was Clemson's third touchdown. That was a deeper pass.
Yeah, that was...
Because we had, Chaz Surratt was on.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I saw that lineup, that was a touchdown from the start. I mean, as soon as Lawrence saw Higgins lined up in the slot against Chaz Surratt, he knew where he was going with the ball. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't even be surprised if that was something that Higgins and Lawrence have just in their head planned ahead of time. I don't even know if his route was supposed to be a seam.
Yeah.
He probably just saw that this is the middle linebacker. He probably looked at Trevor, said, just throw it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way this guy's going to cover me.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw him go seam, I was like, that's a touchdown. Mm-hmm. As long as he doesn't overthrow him, it's a touchdown.
Yep.
So just a little bit, not a blown coverage, but not a good matchup either.
Yeah, exactly. But honestly, I feel like Clemson did not have a very good game plan. Like, if they would have lost this game, it would have been their own faults, honestly. Like, especially T. Higgins, he was just physically dominant compared to our secondary. Like, oh man, some of the guys covering him were like 4 or 5 inches shorter, and this guy could just go up and play bully ball. But they didn't air it out very much, which was very surprising. I honestly thought if they had a bit more of an aggressive play calling and things like that, they would have absolutely smoked us.
Part of that was because of the pressure, though.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we don't know how many times he may have gotten a deep pass off if there had not been guys in his face. So we have to give ourselves a little bit of credit there. But you're right. I mean, anytime number one goes to the wire with somebody who is not expected to beat them in any regard, you have to look at it and say, okay, yeah, there's going to be some things that they just didn't do well, right? I mean, we're not as good of a team as they are. They're more talented. So it had to have a lot of things swing in our favor.
Yeah.
But yeah, nonetheless, really proud of the way we played.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of things really did swing in our favor. Like, most notably, when I think of it, is that fumble on Etienne in like the first quarter that helped set it up, or the really fast start we got. But all of these great swings come down to the last play. Mm-hmm. So I know you were pretty animated about it, and like you and I were both just trying to figure out why on earth they ran, or they called for a 2-point play and then ran the play that they did. So talk to me about how you feel about that.
Okay, so let me start by saying this. I still feel completely confident in this staff moving forward. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm not saying that because of this I'm thinking that we should fire people and that we need changes in face, and I'm not saying that. Also, one thing I want to say is a lot of people I hear are saying that they like the decision to go for 2, but they don't like the play call. Mm-hmm. And I'm exactly the opposite. I hate the decision to go for 2, but if you are going to do it, go with a play that your players, not the how fancy the play looks, not how cool the play looks, go with a play that your players really like. Mm-hmm. And Sam said after the game that this was a play, the speed option, was a play that they really liked. So I like the idea of doing something that your players really like. Because at the end of the game, don't trust plays, trust players. Mm-hmm. And that's what they did, but still should have never happened.
Yeah.
And I know we agree on this, and we're not the only ones that think this, but definitely there's some opposing opinions about this. And I just want to say, to me, there really is no other option in that situation, given how this play was played out, than to kick the extra point there and tie the game.
Well, exactly. And I mean, if you guys saw like our Twitter interactions last night, like the way that I think of it is, you go for the 2 and walk it off if there's like 0 seconds left on the clock. But even if we made that 2-point conversion, Clemson could still go and drive down and kick a field goal and beat us. Yeah. Literally the only way to lose the game in that single moment was to go for 2 and not make it. So you kick an extra point and you put your defense on the field and you hope for overtime.
Yep.
You go for 2 and you make it, you got to hold Clemson from kicking a field goal. But the only way we can lose it and not give our defense a single chance, a defense that was carrying our team for most of the game, was to go for 2 and just run some sort of boneheaded play like that. I mean, it was blown up immediately.
Yeah, and Ben, I'm going to kind of piggyback off of what you said, and I apologize if I basically reiterated a lot of what you just said, but what I want to say here is you look at risk-reward analysis, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. What I always ask myself whenever I'm going to make a decision about something or whenever I'm looking at something else that, in this case, this game, and where they had to make a big decision is, what is the best and what is the worst thing that can happen based off of doing this. Mm-hmm. Okay, so like to what you said, the worst thing that can happen is we lose the game on that one play, and it's what happened. The best thing that can happen by going for 2 there and getting it is we go up by 1, and Clemson still has over a minute.
Yeah, they had 2 timeouts and over
exactly,
a minute.
To go down and kick a field goal to beat us. That's all they have to do. If this was a situation where going for 2 put it where they had to get a touchdown as opposed to a field goal, or maybe get a touchdown and a 2-point conversion instead of a touchdown and a PAT, then I would be like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
But no matter what, if we get the 2-point conversion right there, it does not matter. They can still beat us on a field goal. And I know the argument that later in the game, when Clemson is the better team, the longer we play, theoretically, that gives them the better opportunity to win. I see that. I get that. But the defense had played out of their minds all day. And we made the decision to not trust them to make one more stop to get us to overtime, and then we just roll the dice. I know we're not guaranteed to win it but by any means in overtime. I get that. I'm not saying we get that one stop, we win. But to go for it right there and lose it outright when you had a chance to give your defense another opportunity to put pressure on Clemson, make them do something, force their hand, and we didn't do it, just really, really makes me angry.
Yep. No, I totally agree with you. I mean, I understand, especially like the way the NFL offenses are transitioning right now. Like going for 2 points and trying to walk it off like that, that's like the sexy thing to do. That's
right.
Like, it's cool against number one.
And it's the greedy thing to do. And
yeah.
I mentioned that on Twitter too. I think a lot of what, and I'm not, I don't feel, personally against anyone who thinks this, but I think a lot of the people and a lot of the coaches that would choose to go for that in that situation are being very greedy. And especially if your defense is played the way it has. Now, Ben, I was telling you this yesterday. If the score is like 52-45, okay, and we score to make it 52-51, then I'm like, okay, yeah, go for 2. We're not going to stop them no matter what. They've already scored that many touchdowns. But we've played so well on defense. I mean, we played so well on defense, and I don't know. I mean, if I were a defensive player on the Tar Heels roster, I would really question what the coaching staff thinks about us. After that performance, after how well we played, why do we not get another opportunity to just keep them out of field goal range for 1:16 and then we roll the dice?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, exactly.
No one stops anybody in overtime anyway, because of the freaking rules. So when we get to overtime, it's just going to be offense versus offense anyway. I mean, I know the defense is tired, but they've got to make one stop. It's not going to matter in overtime. I know. It just really baffles me.
I mean, again, you kick the extra point, and you at least have a chance. You have a chance greater than 0%. But you go for 2 with the play that we had, and suddenly you got a 0.0% chance.
Yeah, they just kneel it and run the clock out, and we go home after such a great performance. We didn't ever have a chance to put pressure on them. I can't identify with that at all.
No, I totally agree. And before your blood pressure gets up too high, I mean, we still have a chance to bounce back. We're sitting at 2-3. We've lost 3 straight, but I feel like we're moving into a little bit of a more favorable part of our schedule. And so, with any luck, and if these Tar Heels can rally from this and realize that they do have the talent to stick with the number 1 team in the country, we might have a date with Clemson again for the ACC championship game. And that's what they have to. That's got to be like the carrot, tied to their necks, propelling them forward. That's a rematch with Clemson to avenge the one play there.
Yeah, and this coaching staff owes it to them after that stunt last night. So, but yeah, you're right. If we went out, we will have not lost one Coastal Division game.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I mean, if we went out, or even if maybe we just lose one or something, I don't know how it's going to turn out, but we will more than likely get a chance to play them again. And, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens with that. But, yeah, you're right. It's a great point of motivation moving forward for the team.
Yeah, exactly. So let's figure out exactly how they're going to channel that motivation in next week's game against Georgia Tech. What are your initial thoughts on that game?
Well, you were talking about the schedule a second ago, Ben, and really I think the tough part now, of course, every game is important. Every game is tough in its own regard. But the tough part of our schedule is over.
Yeah.
We've gotten through Clemson, we've gotten through App State, we've gotten through Miami, South Carolina, all that. We've gotten through that, okay? this is now going to start getting a little bit more reasonable for us to be able to. Our margin of error might change a little bit for the better. Georgia Tech is a team that is going through a complete paradigm shift right now.
Mm-hmm.
They, under Paul Johnson and coaches before him, they ran the triple option all day.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those same guys are still on that roster. They're struggling, moving to this more spread attack. And the offense really doesn't have a whole lot right now for Georgia Tech.
Well, exactly. I mean, the Yellow Jackets, they're sitting at 1-3 right now.
Yeah.
So, like you said, we're finally moving into a part of a schedule where we don't have to figure out, like, are our athletes better athletes than their athletes? You know, I feel like we do have the edge in some specific parts of the offense and the defense. So, I mean, primarily I'm just looking at Sam Howell and thinking, like, this dude might be able to just smoke this Georgia Tech defense.
Well, I'm going to kind of go against that a little bit because the defense is the strength of the team.
Mm-hmm.
The defense is not going through any type of paradigm shift.
Mm-hmm.
They're not having to change too much, and they have a lot more experience on defense, especially in the secondary and the linebackers, than what the offense is going through right now. The defense hasn't played bad for Georgia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
They held a really, really good Temple offense yesterday to 24 points. Now, of course, Georgia Tech's offense didn't score anything. The only points on the board for them were 2, which was a safety scored by the defense in the third quarter. So that's not a good look, especially coming off of a bye week. Because I think it would have been 3 weeks ago now, Georgia Tech played the Citadel, which is FCS, and lost. And it was a lot due to the offense, of course. And then they had their bye week and had a week to get things together and then go to Temple and don't score anything. So, really, I mean, that right there tells you the offense is not going to do much.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, the more 3-and-outs our defense forces for their offense, that's more time on the field that their defense has to be out there.
Yeah.
And over the course of the game, I feel like we can wear them down pretty good.
I agree. Yeah, from that aspect, I definitely agree with you there. But we'll have to definitely do that. I mean, their defense will be tough. I think this game will be low scoring. We'll talk about our predictions in a little bit. But yeah, I think it'll be a more of a low scoring game. I don't think we're going to light them up for 40 points. I just don't. Especially them at home and stuff. But yeah, I mean, their offense really doesn't have too much. And kind of going off of that a little bit more, they lost what was going to be their primary quarterback week 1 against Clemson. Okay, he went down with an injury. I'm not exactly sure what injury that was, but he hasn't been back yet. I don't think he's going to be. So they've gone with 2 different quarterbacks, sophomore Tobias Oliver and freshman James Graham.
Mm-hmm.
And neither one of them have over 200 yards passing through 4 games.
That's why. I mean, just for what am I trying to say? Just to relate that to our team, Sam Howell has almost 1,200 yards on the season.
Exactly.
So it's kind of wild.
Exactly, yeah. They don't have a whole lot going for them through the air, and because they are no longer an option team, I see that as a big problem for them.
Mm-hmm.
They are running the ball okay, though. The quarterback, Oliver, is the leading rusher by about 8 yards, I think, over the running back.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what that tells us, too, Ben, is kind of what they're going to look to do, you know? I mean, if you're not having a lot of success throwing the ball, then you want to try to get your quarterback to use his legs, and I'm sure he's an athlete, so they probably run a lot of read option type plays, maybe some RPOs. I haven't watched enough film on them to really tell whether or not they will do that, but I'm just going off their statistics. I think that's safe to say they will try to get the quarterback out of the pocket and let him use his legs.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's not an offense that gets big chunk plays, or it's not designed to be. It's one that grinds you down and forces you to play really strong fundamental defense in order to stop them. You know, the gap assignments have to be perfect. Our defensive ends and linebackers, they can't bite on some of the reads and just let the quarterback run off. So as long as they play fundamentally well, and I thought this Clemson game was the best fundamental game, like by a mile.
Dude, not even close.
Just the reads that they had on defense, they played so many of them so perfectly. I don't know, And I know, we're giving the coaching staff some grief over the decision, but we also got to give the coaching staff some praise just for how well they prepared this team to play Clemson. And so, compared to Clemson, I feel like Georgia Tech is not as big of an ask.
Oh no, not by any means. Even though we're going on the road, yeah. I mean, look, I mean, Georgia Tech is only averaging 13.5 points a game right now, and that's not an offense that's really going to hurt our defense if they keep playing fundamentally sound like they did last night. I mean, if we play 3/4 of a good game, however you want to say that, like we did last night, this upcoming weekend against Georgia Tech, we'll beat this team really bad.
Exactly.
They won't score much at all.
We literally have not had an easy game this entire season.
No.
Every single game. I actually think every single game has come down to like one score.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every single game so far this season was 4 points South Carolina, 3 Miami, 6 Wake, 3 App, and 1 Clemson.
We could literally be 5-0 or 0-5.
Exactly. And I mean, we talked about that last episode for all you guys who listened to that. Like, of course, last week it was either we could be 0-4 or we could be 4-0. We could be 5-0 with a win over the number one team in the country. And shoot, we'd probably be like a top 15 team at that point.
Yeah, we would be flirting with the top 10 for sure after yesterday.
I mean, you just kind of got to take the median there, and 2-3 is not as bad as it could be. You know, There's still plenty of time, and this is not, the same team that's going to get stuck at 2 wins as last season.
No, this is a tough schedule. It's the toughest one in the ACC, I believe. So, getting out of that first initial stretch at 2-3 is not the best thing that can happen, but I think that we have shown that we are here to compete with no matter who we play, and that's not something we've had the past couple years.
Well, exactly. I mean, this is a team that goes out there and they're not going to let you bully them.
No.
And I mean, I honestly think that's because of the new coaching staff and the kind of culture that Mac Brown's brought down. Like, I mean, some of you listeners probably already read that Bleacher Report article that they did on Coach Brown, but I highly recommend it. It was from a few days ago. Really, really cool insight onto how much this team respects him and respects what he's bringing to the table. So, I mean, like we saw with Clemson, this is a team that can come out and beat anyone.
Yeah,
The only issue is we can lose to anyone too, but...
Very true, very true. We need to remember that too. We don't need to get big heads about this good performance, and I don't think we will.
I don't think. It's hard to get a big head about a loss, regardless.
No moral victories, guys. No moral victories. If you want to be a great team, you cannot be content with competing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just not
a loss by 1 against the number 1 team is still a loss.
It's still a loss. It's still a loss. So, exactly right. So, yeah, I don't think they'll have any trouble with that. And I guess with that, we could go ahead and go into our score predictions for this week. What do you have?
So, I agree with you that it's going to be a lower scoring game, but I just think that these Tar Heels are going to come out pissed. And it doesn't matter that they're playing away. I think they're going to come out and they're going to win this 31-10.
10?
Yeah, I want to say they're going to give up a touchdown and a field goal, but that's it.
Okay.
That's it. What about you, Zach?
Good deal. Yeah, no, I think we're definitely going to win this one. I haven't felt more confident in saying that. I've picked us to win how many times? Was it just once? Twice?
Oh, wait, yeah. I mean, you did get your first correct prediction.
Yeah,
you almost did. If we would have beaten Clemson, that would have been... I would not let you make score predictions anymore.
I would pick against us all the time. From then on out. But yeah, I think we win this one 23-14. I'm not going to say we win as handily as you did, although I think it's very possible that happens. I'm going to go 23-14 because I think their defense is very respectable and they will be playing at home. And they might be pissed off too, after the way they just played yesterday. I mean, their defense played good, but the team in general, I mean. I think the offense will score enough, though. I don't think their offense is going to score any more than maybe a couple times. I just don't see that. They're kind of in turmoil right now. So
yeah.
I think we get out of there with a win for sure.
Cool. Well, so I mean, finish the sentence. UNC will win if
we contain their quarterbacks, keep them in the pocket, make them feel uncomfortable throwing the ball. Don't let them use their legs.
If we could force them to the air, that's game over.
Yeah,
we're gonna have a few picks, I think.
Force them to the air, make them uncomfortable, make them do the things that they hope to be doing after they establish this new offense years down the road. Don't let them get comfortable with getting back to running the ball, getting out of the pocket, all that stuff. Spy the quarterbacks. Definitely spy the quarterbacks. Use that to your advantage, especially on third downs, and we get out of there with a win. I think everything else will take care of itself if we do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with you. And my tip goes like hand in hand with yours. I think we just need to play that same fundamentally sound defense that we did. It might be even more important with Georgia Tech just because of the style of offense that they have. But if we can do that, if we can tackle well, if we can set the edge, we're gonna beat this team pretty handily.
I think we will. Yeah, I think we're gonna get back in the win column this week, guys. I really, really do.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait, and as always, guys, make sure to reach out to us on Twitter. We're starting to have some more interactions and stuff, and voicing our opinions on our Twitter page. So make sure to give us a follow, and always shout us out, give us some tips on what we can be doing better or what we can include, and we'd love anything you guys have to offer.
Yeah, love interacting with you guys, even if you guys have different opinions. we love learning from each other and talking about sports in general.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, thank you guys for checking into the Heel Deal podcast again.
Yep, and as always, guys, go to Hell Duke.